Good afternoon, everybody. So Kevin told me there were 30 people registered, so we have about 18. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started because I'm going to talk about a couple of other things before I get into the seminar. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jane Barr. I am the Community Wellness Coordinator. I have a master's in public health, and I'm a registered dietitian licensed in the state of Massachusetts. I work out of the Cardiovascular Center at Newton Wellesley Hospital, and I'm part of the Heart Health and Wellness Council. And the Heart Health and Wellness Council sponsors me to come out to the community to do seminars like this. So I want to talk quickly about what's going on with another one of our councils. So the Newton Wellesley Hospital is part of the Community Collaborative within Newton Wellesley. And there are several different councils with different focuses. We welcome volunteerism from the community. If you are at all interested, feel free to talk to me afterwards. I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about it. One of the other councils is hosting this fabulous seminar coming up. It's called Planning for Caregiving. It's a series of 2 different webinars, and the first one is really going to deal with resources. So even if you're not in that situation right now, but if you feel like, look at the next 5 years, that could be your situation. It might be a good time to get information now. So this is, the first one's going to be Thursday, the June 19th, and then the second one, which is caregiving, planning for an emotional guide. So that's going to talk about more support services for the caregiver. So they're both really great. They're free, and they're webinars. So what that means is you just register. They'll send you a link on email, and you click it. You can watch it live if you want, but if you can't watch it live for some reason, you're busy that day, you can, as long as you registered for it, they will send you an email afterwards with the recording, so you can watch it at your leisure if that's easier for you. And that I always tell people, that way you can skip through parts if it's not of interest to you. So that's coming up, and I just want to make sure there is, if you have any trouble using the QR code, let me know, because I'm not sure this one has an email address on it. They're trying to get away from the email, and they're trying to push everybody to register through the QR code. So we have that coming up, and then I emailed this to Kevin. I know it's out there on your bulletin board. Newton Wellesley Hospital is doing the community health survey. We do this once every 4 years, and it's really to give you a voice. This is a chance for you to tell us what we could do better. So if you have trouble with getting doctor's appointments, if you have trouble with getting to doctor's appointments, this is your opportunity to tell us. And we only do it once every 4 years. So we want to know what you feel we could be doing better, basically. So this is again a QR code. If you have any trouble with it, I'm happy to help you with that. And the survey only takes 10 minutes, and you can actually register to win a $100 gift card. So that's kind of a nice thing. All right, so today we're here to talk about small steps to better heart health. I've given this seminar here in Newton, at the Wellesley Senior Center, I think 2 years ago. So some of you who know me pretty well, may have heard this before. But as this lovely lady in the front row pointed out, things change, and they sure do. Especially when it comes to nutrition, things are changing all the time. And I definitely try to incorporate all the new stuff into my lecture, but sometimes it's changing so fast, I don't incorporate things until I can verify them. So if it's something that you've just heard and you don't hear me say it, it's because I haven't been able to verify it yet, maybe, or maybe I haven't heard it yet. Okay. Why? Hold on. A little technical difficulty. Let's try it this way. Sometimes if I just let it sit too long, it freezes. Let's try it again. Okay. So I want to start out by discussing the risk factors for cardiovascular disease. As you can see, there are 2 types of risk factors. There's modifiable and non-modifiable. And if you have questions or you have things you want to ask, please just interrupt me. This isn't meant to me talking to you for a solid hour. So whenever I talk about cardiovascular disease, I like to start here because the non-modifiable risk factors are things you can't change, right? You can't change your heredity, your age, your sex at birth, or your race. And some of those things do put you at higher risk for heart disease. But the things you can change are modifiable risk factors. If you're smoking, quit. Smoking is the #1 risk factor for heart disease. And what do you think about, I know you guys probably don't do these things, but have you heard of Zins? This new thing that kids chew on? So instead of smokeless tobacco that you used to put in your gum, there's a new thing called Zins, and it is a piece of plastic with nicotine powder in it that kids chew on to get the nicotine. So it's very addictive, created by an industry that's looking to get our younger generation somehow addicted to nicotine. So, and people will always ask me, what about that? Is that a risk factor for heart disease? It sure is, because nicotine, it is addictive, but it also raises your blood pressure, and we know that that is a risk factor for heart disease. So just wanted to give you a little heads up about that. So if you see these little white things all over the sidewalk, especially around high schools, that's what it is. So high blood pressure, that's another modifiable risk factor. If you have high blood pressure, you can take medication, you can alter your diet, and you can include some more exercise into your lifestyle. Elevated cholesterol, we're really talking about the bad cholesterol. I've had a lot of people on the carnivore diet talk to me about the different types of cholesterol and they're looking at this different type of bad cholesterol. It depends on if it's this cholesterol or that cholesterol. And to me, everything I'm still reading tells me that red meat elevates your bad cholesterol. And now I read a new article that tells me that when you digest red meat, it actually releases a chemical that elevates the bad cholesterol that's already in your system. So there's more and more research coming out backing that up, that red meat elevates bad cholesterol. And then excess weight. We all know that carrying around excess weight makes everything harder, right? It makes walking harder. It makes, your day-to-day life harder. So it also is a risk factor for heart disease. Diabetes, sedentary lifestyle, stress, and sleep. So these are all things that we're going to talk a little bit about today. So there are things that we can change, because this is all about making small changes in your life to decrease your risk factors. Yes?
Will you be discussing foods?
Yes. Oh, yes. My favorite risk factor. So how do you manage your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your weight, and your diabetes? So #1, you make good food choices, right? So we're going to talk a lot about food. I'm a dietitian. Nutrition is near and dear to my heart, and it's very related to heart disease. So the other thing you can do is maintain an ideal body weight, regular exercise, smoking, avoid excess alcohol, take your medications as prescribed. So if you've been prescribed a cholesterol-lowering medication or high blood pressure medication, taking that as prescribed. And the other thing I like to really mention is make sure you know your numbers. Because a lot of people, I'll say, do you know what your good cholesterol number is or your bad cholesterol? And they'll say, I don't even know what that is. So you should be your own health advocate. When you go to the doctor, you should know, or if you don't know, you should ask, or look on your patient portal and see what your numbers are. So you want to look at your cholesterol, the breakdown of the good and the bad. You want to look at your blood sugar. You want to see where you are in that normal range, because it is important. And you could be all the way up to a pre-diabetes level, and maybe somebody hasn't mentioned it to you because you're just over the line, but it's important, because if you're at pre-diabetes, that means your body's been going there for 5 years, and so anything you do now can really make an impact on not becoming diabetic. So it is important to know those numbers. Your blood pressure, everybody should get their blood pressure checked at least maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months if it's available to you, which I think it is here. Again, just to kind of keep track. Because if you know your baseline, you'll know when things change. So that's really important. All right. So this is the I was looking at another presentation this morning, I apologize. So this is the first slide that we're going to talk about, the modifiable risk factor of food, right? Because you really want to have a heart-healthy diet, and all of this up here, if you're looking at it, it's pretty overwhelming, isn't it? So keep in mind that you want to make small changes, because small changes can have big impacts on your health. You want to, the American Heart Association says you want to aim for 4.5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. I always say try for 5, because then if you fall short, you're still there. You can think about it as like, maybe think about it in a way like 2 in the morning, 2 in the midday, 2 in the evening. And you know, if you think about your plate, what does your plate usually look like at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner? Is there a place that you see that you could add maybe a fruit or a vegetable there? And I'll talk a little bit about how to do that. And now the other thing you want to focus on when you're shopping, you want to look down in that shopping cart and make sure you see a rainbow of color, because it's not only important to eat fruits and vegetables, which we've always known, it's important to eat a rainbow of color because they all have different phytonutrients in them. And we're learning so much more about phytonutrients. Some vegetables have 30 different phytonutrients. And it's amazing. So the blue in blueberries, we know that can help raise your serotonin. We call them mood berries in our house. And in the winter, we make sure we always eat blueberries to help raise that serotonin level, because everybody in the winter can get the blues. So it's important to eat blueberries. Also, I've been doing some research on a memory diet, and the memory diet says one of the things you should eat every day is blueberries because it really helps your memory. Same with raspberries. They're also really good sources of fiber. So fiber goes hand in hand with eating fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Does anybody know about how much fiber you should have a day? Somebody guess. 25 is a good guess. So it's about 30. What do you think the average American gets? About 10. About 10. So we all probably have a little bit of work to do. And I always laugh because I see my doctor maybe once every couple of years, and she'll say, do you eat one fruit and vegetable every day? She never remembers that I'm a dietitian. And I'm like, well, how many am I supposed to eat? And she'll say, well, as long as you're eating one. I'm like, that is not the right answer. So anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But so that thing, remember to eat that rainbow of color, because we know that those phytonutrients and the macronutrients that are in there, they can help decrease the inflammation in our body. And it's really important to get a variety, because that inflammation is, if you can decrease the inflammation, you decrease your risk for all chronic disease, because inflammation is the building block for chronic disease. So we know it goes back. So heart disease goes back to it. Diabetes goes back to it. High blood pressure. So we really want to make sure that we're eating that variety of fruits and vegetables to get all those different phytonutrients to decrease inflammation. And then always, always try to eat food closest to its whole form. The whole form, what do I mean by that? So if you have a potato, is having a baked potato the same thing as having French fries? No. So the baked potato is the whole form, and the French fries is what? Processed. So you want to try to stay away from the processed stuff and try to eat closer to the whole form. I always say you guys are sort of the lucky people, because you grew up with way less processed food than there is now. And we know we have there's some science coming out that some of these new cases of colon cancer that we're seeing is because of the increase in processed foods. And it's also because we have a low fiber diet. So that fiber that we get from fruits and vegetables and whole grains, does anybody know? There's 2 types of fiber. Does anybody know what they are? Soluble is one, and what's the other one? Insoluble. Right, so the soluble fiber, it kind of turns into a gel in your stomach, and it first of all, it helps you feel full faster, so it gives time for that stomach to get the message to your brain that you're full, so it helps with weight management, it helps you to eat less. And then it also slows down digestion, so it slows the breakdown of food, so the the blood sugar doesn't rise quite as rapidly. And we know, even if you don't have diabetes or pre-diabetes, that's the best rise you can get, is a slow rise in your blood sugar, because that's going to give you nice, even energy. When you have those big spikes and those big valleys, that's when you feel good for like 20 minutes after you eat a donut, and then you kind of get really tired. So to avoid that, you want to eat that fiber, because that's going to help you feel full longer, and it's going to give you better energy. Yes?
A diet like this, I'm a diabetic, raises my blood sugar quite a bit.
So being diabetic is a different story. You're right, you have to be much more careful. And so ideally, whenever you would have a fruit and vegetable, you would have your protein first, right? You have a diet, you see a nutritionist, don't you? Yeah, so even if you're pre-diabetic and you don't have diabetes yet, always important to eat that protein first, because we now know, which we didn't even know, I don't think 10 years ago, that if you eat that protein first, it slows the rise of your blood sugar. So we'll talk about blood sugar real quick because you're here. So we know that glucose, your body breaks down food. It's the glucose in your blood that is the blood sugar, right? So that is a very big molecule. And when you have a lot of it in your blood, it does damage because it kind of floats around and it's kind of sharp and it ticks up your arteries. And we know that all those ticks in your arteries from that big molecule is a perfect place for plaque to set up. So it's really important to try to keep the glucose in your bloodstream as at the sort of normal minimal level. So that's why this is so important, making sure you're getting that fiber, that soluble fiber. And for you, especially you, but everybody, the healthiest way to eat is that protein-fiber combination. And does anybody know what food that describes perfectly? Whole grain, could be a whole grain. Like a quinoa has protein and fiber. What did you say? Pasta, no, not pasta. Pasta's it depends on the pasta. If it's lentil pasta, yes, because that has protein and fiber together, but I was thinking of a nut. Nuts are nature's food that have that protein, that fiber, and that healthy fat. All those things that our body really needs. So those are great snacks. So getting back to this, so I know not everybody, especially if you live alone, trying to eat fresh fruits and vegetables can be challenging. And so I like to always say, try frozen fruit. I keep frozen fruit in my freezer all year long, because now that it's summer and we have stone fruit and we have berries, it's great and everything is delicious. But in December, it's the pits, right? So you don't buy it as much, you don't eat it as much, but if you keep it in your freezer and you just kind of let it, put it in a bowl, 1 cup at a time, and let it defrost, you could add it to your yogurt, you can add it to your cereal, things like that. So you'll keep it on, if you have it on hand, more likely you will eat it. And then you don't have to worry about it going bad, because the cost of food, you don't want it to go bad. I like to give my push for those frozen berries. And I always do the mixed berries, they're delicious. You want to avoid anything, canned is fine. If you do a lot of canned, just try to do no sodium or low sodium, and then rinse. And if you're doing canned fruit, make sure natural juices, and I also say rinse, because those natural juices tend to have a lot more sugar. And we're going to talk about sugar as well. All right, so now grains, right? We want to talk about grains. We want either whole or sprouted grains, and that's really important, because when you don't have a whole grain, you're just having a grain that was processed. And whenever we process things, we take the good stuff out. And what are they taking out? What do you think they take out when they process it? The fiber, exactly, and some of the minerals. And we know sprouted grains like quinoa, sprouted oats, and some other, you can buy like Ezekiel bread that is a sprouted grain. We know that sprouted grains are actually better for you because they have more nutrients than a regular whole grain. because they've had a chance to mature. And so they actually are higher in B vitamins. So those sprouted grains are even better for you, and they're actually easier to digest. So if you're somebody who says, I don't like to eat a lot of fiber because it gives me a lot of gas and a lot of bloating, try the sprouted grains because those are a little easier to digest. Oh. It does. Yeah. It's expensive though. I mean, I say, your health is worth it, but not everybody will spend the extra money for it. It's in the freezer section if you go to look for it. Does anybody else, do you eat it, obviously? Does anybody else eat it?
What is it? What did you say?
Ezekiel bread.
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do too? Oh, good. That's great. That's great to hear because that's great for you. The other thing you could try, quinoa is pretty mainstream now. Does anybody eat quinoa? Quinoa is a great sprouted grain. It's delicious. So you can have it in salads. I put it in sandwiches. Like, it's a great source of protein. Everything. Yep, good. So the other way you can, if you don't like that, farley, buckwheat is another sprouted grain you can try. I love buckwheat. It has a great nutty flavor to it. To me, it's so much more satisfying and filling than rice, even brown rice. I just like it much better. So I would kind of challenge you. If you're someone who does a lot of boring rice, and you think brown rice is kind of boring, I would challenge you to make one swap. Just one, try it once. If you don't like it, don't try it again. But maybe try the quinoa, because it's pretty easy to adjust to. But the farro is delicious. It's got a very nice texture. I happen to love buckwheat, so that's a good one for me. But, maybe quinoa is the way to go. But just try something. Make a little swap. What about oatmeal? Do people eat a lot of oatmeal in here? Do we eat it in the summer? Even hot in the summer? Because overnight oats is a good way to try oatmeal in the summer. If you some people will say, I eat oatmeal all winter long, but then I can't eat it in the summer because it's hot. Overnight oats you make in the refrigerator at night, and then you have it the next day, so you don't have to make anything, which is a win for me. So I make a big batch of it on the weekend, and then I'll just eat it all week long. So that's, if you're someone who's like me, like sick of cooking, I have a few kids, so I've been cooking a lot. Again, they're all home from college now, so it's like, okay, what can I make in mass bulk and just put it in the fridge so I don't have to cook all the time. So I like to use that strategy. So what else? Let's talk about bread. We're going to talk a little bit more about bread on a little further down, but bread you should really read carefully. And I actually have an app for you. It's called Yuka, and will help you kind of weed through all the different breads out there. Those of you who are already doing Ezekiel bread, you have a winner. You can just ignore me when I talk about bread. But bread is one of the things the food industry has really attacked. They've taken all the fiber out, they've added sugar, and they've added a ton of sodium. So if you take anything away from this lecture, look at your bread. Because the bread is really one of the things that they've done a number on. And it's, highly processed. So again, whenever you're thinking about your diet, try to think about whole. Think about how you ate at your grandparents' house. Think about how they used to cook, because that's really what we kind of should try to get back to, is cooking our own meals with less processed ingredients. What?
Yahaskel bread is sprouted bread, very different from the bread that's kept in the freezer.
The sprouted bread?
Yahaskel bread.
Haskell. Oh, I have had that. That is good. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a bread actually I eat.
Haskell.
But nothing else. But it's sprouted bread and it's a very special kind of bread.
Yeah, it's good. The Haskell is the brand she's talking about. It's good. It's also in the freezer section. It's not as prevalent as Ezekiel, though, I don't think, in grocery stores. Oh. Oh, okay.
But it's the same. Sprouted bread.
Yeah, it's just another sprouted bread.
Grains, so sprouted grains and all that.
Yes. So that's great. All right, so let's move on. So I like to talk about plant-based proteins. I always challenge people in this class, if you're somebody who looks at your menu over the past week and say you had meat every night, I would challenge you to try to do like a meatless Monday or a tofu Tuesday or a fava bean Friday, just to take meat out one of the days. There's two reasons for that. Red meat, we know, is high in saturated fat, so maybe you could push red meat out one day of your diet. The other thing is that if you use a plant-based protein, then you're actually increasing your servings of vegetables, which is also one of the goals for people who are interested in heart health. You want to increase those servings of vegetables, so pushing out a meat serving is a great way to do it, using a plant-based protein, because you want to think about what your plate would look like. It would have more protein. It would have a lot of protein on your plate, but it would have more plants. And, the reasons, again, it increases your fiber, which lowers the risk for heart disease as well as some types of cancer. And again, as I was saying with the fiber, it makes you feel full, so it helps with weight management. But I was a dietitian back in the 90s, and I used to say, eat fat-free. Does everybody remember that? We used to have SnackWell cookies, and what was in them besides fat? Anybody remember? Sugar. It was all sugar. No anything else. It was sugar, sugar, sugar. So we now know that's not right. You need fat in your diet, but the type of fat that you have is super important. So you want to do a healthy, unsaturated fat. It should still be 20 to 30% of your total calories, but it's important because your body can't make essential amino acids such as the omega-6s, the omega-3s, the omega-9s. Your body you need to eat those so that you can have those in your diet, and they help to do a lot of different things for your hair, your eyes, your skin, your neurons. So it's really important to have that fat, but you want to have healthy fat. So people will always ask me, what's the best one? What do you think the best one is? Have you heard? Olive oil. I saw somebody say it. The second best one, avocado oil. So if you're cooking at like a high smoke point, you don't want to use olive oil because it burns and it can make things taste not so great. So you would use avocado oil at a high smoke point. So canola is one of I know there's a lot of seed oils get a bad rap because they're just more processed than an olive oil or an avocado oil. So, they are okay. They are an unsaturated fat. I'm not going to go into the chemistry behind it, but they're a good one too. Pumpkin seeds, and this is another challenge. So, does anybody, if you have snacks and you're kind of, your snacks maybe come out of a box or a bag and they're not the best, maybe they have a little more sodium and fat than you want, I would challenge you to try pumpkin seeds. So I do a program at the firehouse with all the firefighters, and as you can imagine, they are not an easy group. And so I brought pumpkin seeds to one of my talks, and they loved them. And I was on them because their snack closet was completely processed foods. And so the next time I came back, they had pumpkin seeds in their snack closet, and they were like, we really like these. These are the big sellers now out of the snack cabinet. So, one change can have a really big effect on your overall diet, because a lot of times all it takes is one change that you find successful, and then you're willing to make another one. So something to think about. And people always will ask me, what is the best nut? What do you think the best nut is? Have you read? Have you heard? Walnuts. So if you can afford walnut oil to cook with walnut oil and it does have a little bit of a flavoring to it, that's a good one too. Almonds are number 2. Almonds are number 2 behind walnuts. But they're great too. And I always say, if you leave this lecture and you're like, I'm going to get rid of the chips, or I'm going to get rid of the crackers or the goldfish, if I could get my kids to stop eating goldfish. They're in their 20s, they still eat goldfish. I'm like, what did I do when I introduced those? And so if you can make that one swap and get rid of that, or maybe just half the time choose a nut instead of a cracker or a chip or something like that. It's small changes, but it really does have a big impact. Soluble fiber is in a lot of fruits and vegetables, so, and also the whole grains. Soluble fiber adds bulk to your stool, which is really important because, you know, that, again, the colon cancer, I've been reading research on the colon cancer because that increase of 10% in the last 10 years is amazing, and it's not going down. We think it's going up. So I've been reading about that, and it's just the soluble fiber is so important to get from your diet. But if you can't get it from your diet, again, if you're someone who doesn't tolerate fruits and vegetables well for some reason, you can take a supplement. Even Metamucil has a natural supplement in it. So that's another way to get it if you feel like you're not getting enough.
Some food names for soluble fiber.
So nuts, any kind of nuts has soluble fiber. You know, celery is full of soluble fiber.
Apples, fruit,
Apples, yep, the skin in apples has got soluble fiber. A lot of the skins. So a lot of the skins will be soluble fiber. So fruits with skins.
that's all I want to know.
Okay. So, so where was I going with that? All right, so let's move on and we'll talk about maybe what we should eat a little bit less of. And this is saturated fats. So you want to avoid the saturated fats because, as I said before, saturated fat is the one thing in your diet we know raises your bad cholesterol. And it's that LDL or bad cholesterol that causes the plaquing in your arteries that causes heart disease. So the recommendation from the American Heart Disease for a heart-healthy diet is 4 ounces of red meat twice a week. So if you have a ham sandwich for lunch, and then you have a hamburger for dinner, that's it for the week. And probably that's it for a week and a half, because most hamburgers are not 4 ounces, right? Most hamburgers are 8 ounces. So it's really to be mindful of you. I mean, if you don't have heart disease, which I hope most of you don't, you can eat more frequently than that. But again, just be mindful of that red meat. And also the processed meats. If you can limit processed meats from your diet. I was at a graduation party on Saturday, and there was a hot dog truck there. And I was like, oh, no, not a hot dog truck. I mean, the latest research is these processed meats are very highly correlated to cancer. I don't want to say they cause cancer, but the correlation is extremely high. And there's also a correlation to processed meats and colon cancer. So that's good reason to eliminate them from your diet. Or maybe once in a while. If you're going to a Red Sox game and you want to have a hot dog, I think that's probably okay. But I would let that be your call. But try not to eat them on a regular basis.
So why? Is that because there's something added to it? Or why?
Well, it's the red meat. And so a lot of processed meats have the nitrates added to them. So that's why you'll see a lot of the more expensive processed meats are nitrate free. So it is the nitrates in some, but some things don't have the nitrates, but they're still on the list of things that can be correlated to cancer. It's just that process. I think that they're not exactly sure what's being put in there, so I think that may be part of it. The processing of it. Try to avoid processed meats. Yeah, sausages and stuff, they put all different parts in there, so it's, Yes?
Maybe getting to this later, but what about different types of fish or seafood? Yeah.
So fish is great. The fatty fish are the best types of fish. I think most people know the salmon, the mackerel, the tuna. And tuna in a can is fine. People are like, oh, that's not the same type of tuna, but it still has the good omegas in there. So tuna in a can is good. You do have to watch the sodium if you're using canned tuna, and you want to have it in water. So you may have heard that shellfish has high cholesterol. So if you have high cholesterol, the amount of dietary cholesterol that's in shellfish is actually pretty low. And you would have to eat a lot of it really frequently for it to really raise your own cholesterol. Most people do not eat enough of the shellfish for that to happen.
Is this good or bad?
So, I mean, that's a good question. A lot of us live on chicken now. So, I mean, to me, variety is important in your diet. Just like when fruits and vegetables, how you get the different colors, you get different nutrients. From different meats, you do get some different nutrients. So variety is still important. But I agree. I eat a lot of chicken too. I don't think it's bad for you. I just, making sure that you have variety just for your own satisfaction as well.
And I mean, pork isn't good and lamb isn't good, so it leaves you chicken, fish, and
Well, you could have pork and lamb, just you would have a smaller portion less frequently. It's not that you can't have it. Because your body does need some saturated fat. It's okay to have some saturated fat. Saturated fat is in milk, it's in cheese, it's in yogurts. I mean, so it's okay. You just want a smaller percentage of your calories to come from saturated fat. So you want to, if you have lamb once a week or if you had pork once a week, that would be fine.
what about turkey?
Oh, the same. Yeah, white turkey is the same as chicken.
That's right.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah, so it's this. Yeah, it would be the same. You can eat that as much as you want.
sliced turkey from the deli.
Sliced turkey from the deli is unfortunately really processed. All the deli stuff is really processed. If you do still do deli, I would say try to get the low sodium that's like called gourmet light, or do no sodium turkey would be ideal because it's tricky. It's a lot of sodium and a lot of other additives. Yeah, sandwich meat is a tough one. Yeah.
I have the corn tortillas, and they have very low sodium.
That's fantastic.
And then, but how do they deal with the sugar and the fibers? And much of those corn tortillas?
So we would have to look at the label, and I will get to a label slide in a minute. So I'll show you what to look for on your label. But you want to look at the grams of fiber, the grams of sodium, the grams of fat, whatever is concerning to you personally. But you make a really good point. So I think further down in this lecture, I talk a little bit about the salty six. Oh, it's coming right up. So yes, most tortillas are, anywhere from 5 to 1,000 milligrams per tortilla. It is a lot. You see the recommendation up here for like a normal, healthy, average person, it's 2,300 milligrams. But the American Heart Association is trying to push this to less than 1,500 milligrams because we know too much sodium in our system is just not great for us. It actually adds to that inflammation I was talking about that is the building block for all chronic disease. So if the less sodium you have in your diet, the better. If you were to ask me what diet I would recommend, and I would say the Mediterranean diet, it's not really a diet, it's a lifestyle, and it's really incorporating at least 2 tablespoons of olive oil every single day, but it really decreases the sodium. It's very similar to what I'm saying here, which is just you want to eat closer to the whole form of food whenever possible.
Why is soup on there? Because I'm a can of
Right, if you're buying canned soup or now it's boxed soup, yes. So anything that is, obviously processed, not homemade. No, homemade soups are the best soups. If you can do homemade, then you completely control what the sodium is in it. So that's great.
you need salt, you want salt, or you think you're not getting in enough. You can
Oh, you definitely need salt. Sodium is something that we need in our body to balance the magnesium. That helps with blood pressure regulation. And it helps with the movement of water in and out of our cells. So it's really important to have some sodium in your diet. It's really, unless you have some different medical issues, it's really not good to go no sodium. But this is the recommendation now. What do you think the average American gets, though, for sodium in their diet? 5,000 is probably closer to, the American Heart says the average American gets 3,400 milligrams a day, but I bet it's closer to 5,000 now, because that was before they put sodium in absolutely everything. So a good, and the recommendations for entrees is 400 milligrams. So if you go out to a restaurant and you can see the milligrams of sodium on the entrees, that's what you should be aiming for, and that's pretty hard to do. Because even if you do like grilled swordfish or grilled something, a lot of times the marinade or the sauce they put on top of it is going to have a lot of sodium. So when you go out to dinner, I always say, try to think of it as a balancing act, because we all go out to dinner and we know we're going to get a lot more sodium, maybe a lot more fat than the things that we would normally eat. So if you know you're going out to dinner that night, then you want to make sure maybe you're lower during the day. Like, if you normally have whatever you have for lunch, let's say you normally have a sandwich and your bread has 500 milligrams between 2 slices. Maybe you wouldn't have a sandwich that day because you're going out to dinner that night and you know you're going to get some extra sodium. Maybe you opt for a salad. So, you kind of think of it as a balancing act when you're going out to eat and try to make up a little bit for it before you go so that your body's not getting 2,000 milligrams of sodium from going out to eat. Okay, so I'm getting a little behind time here. So the Salty 6, bread rolls, I talked about bread. Pizza, Americans eat a ton of pizza. We probably all eat pizza. You guys probably will eat pizza sometime this weekend. It seems like it's so readily available wherever we go. And it's not, cheese has inherently some sodium in it because when they make cheese, they use sodium, but it's really the crust. So if you go to the same pizza place and it's a local joint, it's not a chain, you could actually talk to them about lowering the sodium. I tried this. You could talk to them about lowering the sodium in their pizza crust recipe. Maybe they'll listen to you, maybe they won't. But again, it's something you need to plan for. If you know you're going to have pizza for dinner that night, you want to maybe be a little bit lower in the sodium during the day because you know you're going to get a kind of a big load at that dinner. Cold cuts are really tricky. Unless you go to no salt, they all have very, very large amounts of sodium in them. And then if you think about building a sandwich, even if you have a low sodium bread, like 75 milligrams, that's pretty low. But if you do that times 2, like that's 150, and then you get 400 milligrams of sodium from your cold cuts, and then you add cheese on top of that, like you're almost at half your day's worth of sodium with one sandwich. I know it's not good news, I'm sorry. So sodium is tricky when it comes to sandwiches. And the burritos and the tacos, you already hit the nail on the head there. It's the tortillas and the taco shells, very high in sodium. But corn is a great way to go. And when you get a corn tortilla versus a flour tortilla, you're also getting some fiber because they tend to have like 3 to 5 grams of fiber in them. So that's definitely a better choice. All right, so we talked about eating less processed foods. I haven't really talked that much about sugar yet. Sugar is, we know, again, one of the building blocks for inflammation, so you want to watch the amount of sugar in your diet. It's recommended that you have, women, it's less than 6 teaspoons, and men, it's less than 9 teaspoons. That sounds like a lot, or 24 to 36 grams if you're counting grams on your labels. It sounds like a lot, but it's really easy to get there because of the sodium that's added to everything, like crackers. I challenge you, if you're somebody who eats crackers, go home and look at how much sugar is in your crackers. You'll see there's like 4 grams per serving sometimes. So you really want to read labels. Label reading is your best friend, and that's why I have this app, if you're interested in it, called Yuka, that's helpful in reading labels. And the other thing, does anybody eat yogurt? Does anybody eat flavored yogurt? So when you eat flavored yogurt, if it's flavored, that's going to be a lot of added sugar. So it'll be upwards probably of 12 grams of sugar in a half a cup or a cup. So you want to make sure you're looking at the label for that. If you're someone who's like, I just can't eat plain yogurt, try going to vanilla. So again, this is a small swap that could have a big difference. So go from the flavored yogurt to vanilla, because vanilla is probably only 8 grams of sugar or 9 grams of sugar versus 12. And then maybe eventually you could mix it half and half, plain in the vanilla, and then you're going to go even less. And then if you could eventually go to all plain, that's perfect. But maybe try the plain, but add your own stuff to it. Maybe add berries, add granola, add some cinnamon is a great one to add to it. And if you really want to add a sweetener to it, I would always say use honey over regular processed sugar because it is a little bit lower on the glycemic index. So you want to, I'm not saying you should add honey, but if you have to add something sweet, that's a better choice. All right. And then I have to do my little thing about alcohol. My parents were of the nightcap generation where they always had a nightcap before they went to bed. And we now know that that's probably the worst thing you can do for your sleep. So, because what happens is alcohol is really good at helping you fall asleep, but then you wake up and then you have a really hard time getting back to sleep because that alcohol puts you into a light sleep, not into a deep sleep. And so we call it junk sleep. So you want to avoid that junk sleep and, skip the alcohol. The other thing is, this is the new wording for this is 1 to 2, 1 drink a day for women, 2 for men, but if you don't drink, don't start. And this recommendation is probably going to go away because they were trying to get the cancer warning on alcohol. I don't know if that's still going to happen or not, but we now know there's a direct correlation between alcohol consumption and cancer. Some certain types of cancers, not all cancers. Breast cancer being the main one. So the other thing about alcohol that most people don't know is alcohol raises your blood pressure. So if you already have high blood pressure, alcohol is definitely something you want to stay away from. And if you're somebody who has a heart arrhythmia, it makes it way worse. So stay away from alcohol. Yes?
Have you ever seen food labeling on alcohol?
There's a warning right now for pregnant women, and they tell you, I think, how many calories and what percentage of alcohol is in it. But what they want to do is they want to change the warning just from pregnant women to that this can cause cancer.
What are the ingredients?
Of alcohol, it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
They're all made differently. But I don't know the science behind it. It's the alcohol itself, not like the flavoring or whatever that causes the increase in the blood pressure. Some is very high in sugar, yes. All right, so this is just a nice diagram of what your plate should look like. Again, protein should play a part, and if you can try to get yourself to do a meatless protein at least once a week, maybe then move from once to twice, that'll help you increase the plants in your life, the plants in your diet, and that's always a good thing. But so now I'm going to switch gears away from the food and to the exercise. I want to just talk a little bit about what the American Heart Association recommends for exercise every day because it always amazes me. I feel like I've talked this talk so many times, but I always find somebody who's like, wow, I didn't know it was really that high. So it is 150 minutes per week or 75 minutes per week of vigorous exercise. Most people don't do vigorous exercise, so I would stick with the 150. And that's about 30 minutes a day. And you don't have to do the 30 minutes consecutively, but exercise should be done mindfully. Like if you're thinking like, oh, but I stand up and I do a lot of housework, that's not really exercise. We call that physical activity, but you have to mindfully do something repetitively for it to be exercise at sort of a sustained rate. Like if you go for a walk and you because you can feel your heart rate rise when you go for a walk, feel maybe a little out of breath or a little short of breath when you're walking. And that is really good for your heart. People don't realize that when you exercise at a sustained pace for 20 minutes and you feel that increase in your heart rate, your heart can actually build new blood vessels. And so it can become more efficient. And that's really important. So I work in cardiac rehab, and we had a patient come through who was an avid exerciser but had very high cholesterol because it was hereditary and had a blockage, but he did very well because he was an avid exerciser and he had so many small capillaries that had grown from his exercise that when his blockage was completely blocked, he had other routes for the blood to still move. So he did amazingly well because of it. I like to use that example because I was just like, wow, there's science walking right there. It was really amazing. So that really, that mindful exercise, and if you can't do 30 minutes at a time, that's okay. Or if you can't do 20, or if you can't do 10, do something, but do it sort of mindfully where you feel like you're getting your heart rate up for at least 5 minutes at the start, and then you can build up slowly. Set small goals for yourself. And I always say, if you're really trying to get to that goal, you want to track it, so write it down, because writing it down kind of like cements it, that you've actually done it, and then you can look back and be proud of yourself. I did this. I'm a big proponent of Fitbit or Apple Watch or any kind of tracker, because then you can see. And the thing I like about these devices is you can set them to remind you to exercise. Also remind you to stand up, because what you're doing now is not recommended, right? Sitting is the new smoking. You should never sit for more than 30 minutes. You should always try to stand up every 30 minutes. Just that act of standing up is so much better for your body. It gets your blood moving. It gets, those cells reactivated. So it's really important to stand. So I have a reminder set to make sure I stand every 30 minutes. And then try to do something every day, make it a habit, make it fun. Make it be something you like, not something you hate. And if you can, find a buddy. Yes?
How about upper body exercises, stretching and weights?
You're way ahead of me. I'm going too slow. So strong muscles are super important, especially as we age. So as we age, after the age of 40, you lose muscle mass every year. So if you are not fighting to hold on to the muscle mass you have with strength training or resistance training or bands or some type of strength training, you are going to lose it. And so what happens when your muscle mass decreases is your metabolism goes down. So it's easier to gain weight. So it's really kind of a death spiral, let's call it. So if you're not exercising and your muscle mass is decreasing and your metabolism is going down, and then you're gaining weight, do you feel like exercising if you gain more weight? Probably not. So you get stuck in that cycle. So it's really important to put in that strength training. And it doesn't have to be lifting weights. It can be using resistance bands. It can be doing Pilates or yoga. I know you guys have Peter here for yoga, right? I don't know if anybody takes his class. He's a great yoga instructor. But find out what works for you, and at least twice a week is the recommendation. And trying to do all the different muscle groups is recommended. But I always say, if you're someone who feels like your balance is not great, start maybe doing, if you do some exercising, you want to start holding on to something or using a chair. But really, even just standing on one foot burns more calories than standing on two. So small changes you can make. Start slowly, but, it's good to have goals. Regular exercise every day. And again, a lot of us know this stuff, but we don't necessarily do it. Taking the stairs versus the elevator, parking the car farther away so you have to get more steps. That's why I feel like the trackers help, because I had this long argument. My sister and I are complete opposites. She has heart disease and she's overweight, and she would hate it if I was telling you this, but she wouldn't listen to me about exercise and this. And so I said, do one thing for me, buy a Fitbit. Buy a Fitbit and just start looking at your exercise. And after a month, she did it. She bought the Fitbit. She was like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything. She's like, I need to walk more. I'm like, yes, you do. Good for you. So I just think it's a small change, but if it's something that will motivate you, I'm super motivated by numbers. I love my tracker. I look at it several times a day. And if my husband and I get home from work and he gets home from work, I'm like, how many steps do you have? So we're just very competitive about it. We make it really fun. So 30 minutes a day, start gradually. And if you have a medical condition that prohibits you from exercise, then, talk to your provider about it and see if there's something you can do, some way to get started slowly. But also, trying something new is a good way to kickstart your exercise if you feel like you've fallen into a rut and you're kind of bored with it. I have a lot of friends who play pickleball. They love it, or have started golfing, or joined a walking club. Walking club is a great way to meet new people, be social, and get some exercise. And then I should move this slide further up because I feel like I always leave it to the end and I'm running out of time. But stress, we know, is just as important as exercise and a healthy diet. If you are walking around with a lot of stress and you don't have a way to pour some of that stress off, it actually causes the same plaquing in your arteries that all these other things can cause. So it's really important that you address your stress in some way. There are two types of stress. There's healthy stress and there's unhealthy stress. We probably all have both in our life, but it's that unhealthy stress. The healthy stress where you're like, oh, I'm getting married, it's so exciting, or my daughter's getting married, or we're having a grandchild. Like, that's exciting, and you kind of feel your adrenaline go, and you get really excited about it. But it's short-lived, and it kind of goes away on its own. Whereas that unhealthy stress builds up if you start to feel out of control or overwhelmed, frustrated, you get short-fused, fearful. Then you should really find a way to address it. Actually, you shouldn't wait for that to happen. You should just have something that you find that relaxes you and try to focus on doing that at least once a day. I like to engage in relaxation exercises. Sometimes I'll sit at my desk and just do a little chair yoga if I'm at the hospital and I'm stuck at my desk all day. I'll just do a little chair yoga and that will relax me. You can just do, there's some tapping exercise. There's a lot of guidance for this on Insight Timer. If you have ever heard of Insight Timer, there's also other apps you can get called Calm or Headspace. I think they all have a free trial, and then those charge, but Insight Timer is free. So that's a good one. But there's other things that you can do. Like, you can just walk out in nature. They say walking in nature is a great way to reduce stress. Talk to a friend, find a hobby. Does anybody have a hobby that they want to share that they feel is stress relieving? No? No hobbies? What? Gardening, yes. Gardening's a great one.
Cross-country skiing.
Cross-country skiing is a fabulous one. Does anybody do puzzles? Puzzles are a great way to relieve stress. If you're looking for the piece, or even if you're doing the type that are online, like a Wordle or something like that, it's because anything that gets your mind really focused, so all that other stuff that's going on in your life just kind of goes away for a while. So doing something like that for just 5 minutes. And then I'm just going to talk briefly on sleep because we've done an entire seminar on sleep. Sleep is tough as you get older because the hormones that help you sleep go down as you age, and what happens is we tend to take more naps as we age, which makes sleeping at night more difficult. We tend to exercise less, sit more, so that is also one of the things that makes sleeping at night a little bit trickier. But try to have good sleep hygiene. Try not to nap after 3 o'clock. This is hilarious because my husband comes home every day from work and falls asleep on the couch for at least 10 minutes. And I'm like, and then he can't sleep at night. And every day we have the same conversation. I'm like, because you took a nap at 6 o'clock. So anyway, so try to do what you can. Avoid exercise close to bedtime because that kind of revs you up. I talked about alcohol, but caffeine and nicotine also rev you up and keep you awake. But you want to have a good sleep environment. Has everybody heard that you should really turn that smartphone off an hour before you go to bed? Because that light that is on the smartphone triggers your brain to stay awake, and it prevents your brain from producing melatonin, which actually helps you fall asleep at night. So that, think about how we fall asleep earlier. We kind of feel more tired in the winter. It's because we have less light. So if you're in a really, really bright room, it's hard for your body to produce melatonin. So maybe dim the lights and that kind of thing. So you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for a good sleep. Make sure it's cool in your room. And last but not least, you want to stick to a schedule. Go to bed at the same time. Wake up at the same time, even on the weekends. The weekends are usually a little trickier, but because you have more activities. All right, so these are sort of the prongs of everything I talked about today of knowing your numbers, nourishment, movement, be smoke-free, relax, and restorative sleep. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here. I'll stay for a few minutes. Or if you want to ask questions now, feel free.
Cheese, what about cheese? I've got a thing for cheese lately, but I eat cheese.
I love cheese too. So cheese is okay in moderation. It does have some saturated fat in it. The thing about cheese is it's changed a lot too over time. So you want to go for a less processed cheese. So you want to look at the ingredients in your cheese. I always tell people I want to make America great again. Do not buy grated cheese. Grated cheese has has like the things that make the cheese stick together. Those are chemicals that we know are not good for us. They are hormone disruptors. We're not sure what hormone disruptors do yet, but I'm pretty sure they're tied to cancer. So, Barr cheese. Yeah. So, a cheddar cheese, things like that. If you want to go, if you're thinking about trying to be the healthiest you can be, I would say look up the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet says you really want to focus on goat cheese, sheep cheese, anything that is really has very, very little processing. Because even a cheddar cheese has some processing to it. But that's where you want to buy, instead of buying like the store brand cheddar, you would buy like a Cabot cheddar. Because if you look at the ingredients on the two, the Cabot has less ingredients than the store brand. Yeah. So you look at how long the ingredient list is. Less ingredients, better. Any other questions?
I haven't researched Mediterranean diet. What do they do for breakfast? Or what's in breakfast in the Mediterranean diet?
The oatmeal, yogurt, you can do eggs. Mediterranean diet is a different lecture. It's coming to a place near you soon. So you can join me this fall. I'm going to schedule to do it here this fall. It's called the Diet Health Connection, but it's really basic. I'm going to talk mostly about the Mediterranean diet, but you can look it up. There's a lot of information online about it.
So if you actually follow the Mediterranean diet, then a lot of the things that you brought up are automatically built in. Yeah.
Yes.
These meals will put me over the top. So
Yes. Yeah, no, the Mediterranean diet, the reason I've, as a dietitian, like I said, been a dietitian for a long time, have seen lots of things change over time. Mediterranean diet is very steadfast. There's a lot of science that supports it. So I'm a big fan. But it's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. Like, think of it as a lifestyle.
I've learned to use my
Oh, good for you. Yes, and when you buy olive oil, make sure you buy first cold pressed, because there are imitators out there that have processed olive oil. So it should be extra virgin olive oil, first cold pressed, because that cold press maintains the omega fatty acids, whereas if it's pressed in a hot or warm fashion, it destroys them. So it's really important that it be cold first pressed.
Adding flavors in yogurts. What about the fat? Is it better to have the 2%?
As a general rule, I would say you would want to do less saturated fat, because the fat in yogurt is saturated fat, because any fat that comes from an animal product and coconut oil is a saturated fat. So that's the thing, you want to have 10% or less of those of your total calories from saturated fat in your diet on a daily basis. So I would say moderation. If you're somebody who only likes the full fat yogurt, then you would have it less often. Low fat is better if you have it a lot. Like, I eat yogurt every single day. So if I ate, and sometimes I eat it twice a day, so that would be too much saturated fat for me in my diet. But I would say moderation.
zero fat in it. So zero fat?
It doesn't have to be zero fat. It can be 2%. Like, a lot of the Icelandic is 2%. Not all of it's zero.
We didn't talk about labels, but
I know.
I used to train
I apologize.
for sugar. So is there any guideline on how much sugar there should be in a particular item?
You have diabetes, so it's not that's not a guideline I can give you. I think that do you wear a monitor?
Yes.
So there's a lot of good literature that says, you should really focus on you and see what elevates your blood sugar. Now, diabetes has been around forever, and we've not been the best at managing it, to be honest with you, for the past 20 years. We're getting so much better now that we have monitors, but we realize, even foods that have set glycemic index may not affect you the same way it affects me. So it's really important for you to know you. So what foods really raise your blood sugar and what foods don't. But as a general guidelines, I can't give you sugar. But if you're going to eat sugar, I would say make sure it has protein and fiber, or one or the other with it, because that will slow down the absorption of it,
Stay away from the ice cream.
unfortunately. Yes?
Speaking of those things, we have coffee cafe over here. Next to it, they have sugar cafe. They also have artificial.
Oh, that's a whole nother lecture.
Been warned not to take, right?
Yeah, artificial sweeteners are not good for us. Then it was funny because at first it was like saccharin. We just knew saccharin was bad. And then it was aspartame and saccharin. And now it's all the sugar alcohols too that's in every single sugar-free product.
Does it have real sugar? Is it better to have real sugar?
If you're not diabetic, I would say yes, but you got to minimize the amount of sugar you have in a day, so you really have to pick and choose.
How about cream cheese?
So again, cream cheese is one of those things that is mainly fat. It's mostly fat. So that's really what you're getting from it. It's just sort of like a butter substitution. So it does have a good amount of saturated fat. And I would say moderation. Think about, again, but, don't think about it as like one food. Think about your whole day. If that's the main source of your fat, if that's a lot of the fat that you eat every day, then if it's not too much, it's okay. Everything in moderation. If ice cream was your only fat and you weren't diabetic, then, that's how you want to choose to have your fat calories for the day. You have to think about it. You want to moderate your diet. You want to have moderation. So if you're having sodium here, you're going to pick something else here. If you're having fat here, you're going to pick something else here. You kind of have to.
What's the name of the diet again?
Mediterranean diet. Yes?
What about milk? Can you have one?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very low. 1% is very low. So that's fine. If most people can't do skim, or some people can't. I thought you were going to ask me about the whole processed, raw. We don't have time for that today. All right, I'm going to sign off, but thank you guys for coming. You're a great audience. I apologize, the label slides were not in this one. I do a lot of these different lectures, so it's always, sometimes I forget which label slides are in this lecture versus the other lecture, but anyway, I'll be back again, I promise.